afraid of breaking off as well, so I just thought it's better if just my video, and then let's hope that will work well.
Okay.
First of all, I would like to say a big thank you for the opportunity to talk here about a topic that intrigues me since my adolescence, and that is how to create a mathematical economic framework that works. And what I mean by works is that it has predictive power, it is empirically disprovable, and does not assume any specific morals. And so far, it seems to me that the most likely answer is that the maths approach used in non-equilibrium thermodynamics might be a suitable basis for replacing the worn-out approach and maths of textbook economics. Thus, I feel that I am here in this conference at the right place, and I am looking forward to the talks to see how other people are thinking about very similar questions, and also to see the up-to-date knowledge about thermodynamics, the state-of-the-art research in that field. And that it is quite a hot topic. It is shown by that, for example, just while I was preparing for this talk, a paper came out that has very similar mathematics that the framework. As actually the mathematics is used quite often. Just somehow the framework seems to me missing. And so in this paper, in the conclusion, I just felt that I am reading there some words that I could say as well. So let's say them. Although irreversibility has not been emphasized in economics, it plays a vital role in physics, particularly in thermodynamics. This model suggests that there may be a novel correspondence between physical and economic systems. This correspondence might enable us to formulate economic and social models from the viewpoint of irreversibility. Exactly, irreversibility. So, for me, the words of Takuma Tanaka are exactly what I mean, that, hey, we need irreversibility. And that will be most of my talk, to talk about it, why we need to forget about equilibrium, not only when we are doing some agent-based modeling, but also when we are thinking in the economic framework. So this talk will have 4 parts. First, we will just talk a bit about, so first I will just talk a bit about the definition of non-equilibrium thermodynamics and non-equilibrium economics, because how I use the word non-equilibrium might not be the same as other people are using it. People are using the same term sometimes to describe different things, so let's get it right. Then I will try to answer the question, is it worth the effort? Because changing a framework is a lot of work to do, so why to do it? Then I will just show very quickly some basics, but for more details, there are papers already published, and I hope in case my extended abstract will be accepted, and also there you can see more the formulas, the maths. And how to better end the talk than by a note of caution that what I'm not claiming, and I don't think so, that non-equilibrium thermodynamics cannot be used just without any critical thinking, just write the same way for non-equilibrium economics. It's different. The same, sometimes there are similarities, but it's still not the same field. So to use the formulas, the concepts, they need to be adapted. And so what I mean by non-equilibrium here. So sometimes people understand non-equilibrium in that way that we imagine equilibrium and then some deviations from it, and that's non-equilibrium. But here in this talk, that's not what it means. It means that we just don't talk at all about equilibrium. There is no equilibrium at all. Equilibrium has been shown its way out. No. We just imagine the world where there is no equilibrium. That concept is just lacking in the whole description. And then, why does it matter actually? What are the basic differences? Well, first of all, in equilibrium, we have equilibrium. In non-equilibrium, instead of that, we have direction and time, which is thinking about our life, our circumstances, our nature. It seems to be way more realistic. In the same way, market is an interesting notion, it's an interesting concept that is not very realistic, it's very abstract. In non-equilibrium, we have two party exchanges. But the most important part for me is about morals, because equilibrium description assumes certain morals about people, whereas non-equilibrium economics accommodates a wide variety of models. And why does it matter? Well, in case you have only the option to remember one slide of this whole talk, then it's this one. So, in equilibrium economics, mathematics and economic model are used to derive from it the needs and ethics of the society. And we know that maths is a great slave, but it's a very bad master. So in non-equilibrium economics, it's a key change that there, the needs and ethics of the society are decided by the society, and as parameters, they are included in the mathematics and economic model. So the mathematics and the economic model does not imply a certain moral, a certain behavior for people. And that's one of its advantages. And also that it's empirical, so it's empirically more disprovable. It's also easier to relate to, as there are less abstract notions in it. And the most important part is, as I already mentioned a few times, is about morals. And why does it matter that much? It matters because we as people are not like atoms. Atoms don't care about what we think about them. Maybe our measurements will be changed because we just, as people, we just measure what we think that we can measure. But the atoms will behave in the same way, whatever we think about them. That's not the same with people. People adapt to the way how we think about them, and also people adapt to the way how they think the other people are behaving. So right now, the economic framework teaches people that people are selfish, people are rational, that's how you should be, sort of. And that's a normative statement. And it's also normative in my sense that I do believe that these are negative ones. These are negative properties that I prefer not to nurture in our society. Thus, for me, it's a negative self-fulfilling prophecy that we assume about people that they are selfish, because then they will be more selfish, and that's not a change that I would like to see in the society. And we know that that's not theory, it's also practice. It has been already shown that people learning a lot about these economic concepts will become more selfish. And if it's just so advantageous, what I was talking about so far, then why it's not already used, why it's not already implemented? Well, because it has also its disadvantages. First of all, that it contains new mathematics. It's not really new, it's already there, people are using it, people are also using it in economics. Just for the framework, how it's taught for decades now, it is a very different viewpoint. So that would mean a big change in the approach of how it is taught, how it is thought about. It has also the disadvantage that it doesn't give one firm answer, meaning that there are the equations, they are there, but to let them say anything, we need the parameters. And these parameters decide actually the result in a way. They influence the result so heavily that we cannot really say anything without assuming something, without knowing something about the parameters. So that means that as we don't assume, we cannot give answers without knowing the details. It also seems very basic. And that's a disadvantage, because when I'm talking about it to lay people, then they usually say, okay, but what's science in it? For some reason, for a lot of people, science means that it's something that I cannot understand, that is unrealistic, which shouldn't be the definition of science, but as it's so widespread, that's also a barrier that has to be overcome. And I love elegance. For me, that's very important. And non-equilibrium approach is not as elegant. It's more messy, more details, more parameters. And but still, it's more realistic. And why it matters? Well, to finish this part of my talk, I would like to cite Roadside Picnic, the sci-fi Roadside Picnic. That I felt that a description there would be perfect to describe what I think about equilibrium and why I think it's so crucial to get rid of it from the basics of the economic framework. Is that the hypothesis of equilibrium, for instance, gives an incomparably absolute opportunity to understand everything and know absolutely nothing. Give man an extremely simplified system of the world and explain every phenomenon away on the basis of that system. An approach like that doesn't require any knowledge, just a few memorized formulas plus so-called intuition and so-called common sense. And that is for me unacceptable, and why I am so intrigued to find another framework that does not require the assumption of equilibrium. And so talking about this other framework, let's talk a bit more about the details. It also has assumptions, first of all. It's not a perfect one that without any assumptions we can describe the world well. It also needs some assumptions. But they are way weaker and more realistic. For example, instead of rationality, the purpose of economic action is to increase the expected wealth. So there is a direction in it. And instead of utility maximization, the production and trading level is proportional to the expected profit. That's quite a strong assumption, and I'm looking forward to the talks in this conference to see maybe we can make it actually a weaker one and a more realistic one. And instead of equilibrium, the evolution of an economic system is described by the balance equations for stocks of material goods and money. So that it's evolution, so there is time. Instead of equilibrium, that is very stable, we have evolution and more realistic time. And so just based on the first one, we can write a wealth function, which is very similar to entropy. It always increases, which is not exactly what is realistic, because we know that in reality, wealth isn't always increasing. Entropy is always increasing, so that's why it's not the same, it's very similar. And this wealth function depends on those goods and money. And the important thing is that the details of the function are decided by the agent. So how the agent values its own possessions, it depends on the agent. We don't assume any morals about the agent. And so just the balance equations, they are also very simple. It's what we have now, it's what we had before, minus what we consumed in between, plus what we produced, and whatever is left over from the trade. And the same is true for money. It's what we had before, plus or minus the trade, if we assume that we are not banks who are actually creating money. And so the note of caution, as I already mentioned, that entropy increase is low, whereas wealth increase isn't low. And in thermodynamics, with increase of entropy, we also have disappearance of structure, whereas in economics, we have development of structures. And in thermodynamics, irreversibility comes from random events, whereas in economics, it comes from it that economic systems are situated in nature. So as we had random events and thus irreversibility in nature, we have irreversibility in economics. These are just 3 examples. There are very more. For more examples, just see the paper of Professor Martinez, who is also giving a talk tomorrow. And what is left here is to say a big thank you for your attention, and also recommend you further reading that also opened my eyes to the possibility that this approach might be suitable to replace the equilibrium-based approach that is so widespread in the basic approach of economics. It's by Ayres and Martinez on the reappraisal of microeconomics. And if you are interested, or if you have any comments or suggestions, or maybe there is a whole field working about the same topic that I haven't found yet, please let me know. And if you have any other recommendations how to better answer the question, how to make an economic system that works and theoretical economic framework that works, please let me know. I'm really interested about that. And for now, thank you for your attention and enjoy the conference.
Thank you, Veronika.
Veronika, this is Kerry King. I'll only say, so thanks for that. I think I'm the last session of the conference and I might have something my question to you is, when you say works for economics, then you can define what works. The work with, if that entails something good or bad, but yeah, I'm familiar with Bob Ayres' work, and it's inspired an economic model that I'll summarize at the end of the conference, I think in the last session of the conference, but go ahead. Yeah, when people say, I want this to be a good model or a model that works, then, you know, what do you mean by that? Or think it's a fallacy or not?
I think I defined in the beginning there. So this is why I completely agree. Like works means completely different things for different people. Yes, that and for me it means that it has to be empirical, and so for one of the key is that it shouldn't imply morals. That morals should come from the society and not from a mathematical theory. So that's the key for me, the basic. So that's what I cannot negotiate about. And then there are other things where I am more like flexible. For example, with empirical, where is the line where you say it's empirical and it's not? I completely agree that it's a bit difficult. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, that's okay. I think there's a challenge between, let's just say, human morals or ethics, what anyone thinks they are, and potentially going against things that this conference is discussing, which are things like the most probable distribution of things. So if someone's morals go against the most probable distribution or power consumption, then these things might inherently be in conflict. And I think that's what we're sort of discussing.
Yes, but should this be in the model or not? So should you suppose a certain behavior in the framework, or it should be like you have a framework and then in the parameters you put in to it the morals? I think there is a question.
Right. I think we got to move on, but I'll say like even if we have a neoclassical model, it doesn't impose morals upon me, even though we use it and our people use it. I don't use it, but so I don't know that the mathematics embed morals. They assume certain things that may be incorrect, but that this conference is discussing, but it's not clear to me how I guess they can convince people that there's a certain correct way of thinking that's incorrect from a thermodynamic or statistical standpoint. Maybe that's what you mean.
Thank you, Nathaniel. And I think now this session transition to T4.